Alizé. There's nothing wrong with being called bougie. If she were to call me bougie, I'd be like, thank you.
Yeah, but it also is. It's twofold. It's a compliment and a jab.
Oh, it could be a jab to be like, dang, you look bougie. But
well, it's like, in tone, but
yeah.
the word itself is depending on the culture and the person.
Would you say I'm bougie?
I would say there are areas in which you are bougie, and there are areas in which you aren't.
You created this.
Well, I wanted someone that, took showers and, took off their makeup at night and didn't have it.
No, but
go
you
overnight,
definitely created a bougie person in me, because where did I shop before we met?
Dollar store.
And Ross.
Yeah.
Ross.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
But you created this, so you can't be mad at this.
Yeah. Well, like I told you when we first started dating was, when I was younger, we had to actually go there because that was all we can afford.
Right.
You were doing it because I'm trying to be frugal. I'm trying to. Yeah. You go to a kid's birthday party and you'd go to the dollar store to buy a bag. I'd
Absolutely.
be like, I don't. You can go to Target and you can, instead of paying $1, you could pay $3.99 for a legitimate, birthday bag. So
and I think it was more so because you hated how long the dollar line store was in order to get the dollar bag.
Yeah. Every year we got one pair of shoes from Payless. That was it. My mom claims it was. Yeah. My mom claims I had Jordans and no. Once a year we could go to Payless. We could buy one pair of shoes. If it was BOGO, maybe you'd get two. And I had to wear them all year. That was it. One pair. I asked for Heelys so bad growing up. And the time my parents actually got them for me, they were 2 years out of style. Yeah. So I stopped asking for stuff that was in trend.
we were more of the saving type. So I even shopped Payless until when we were engaged.
You would go to Payless and get your shoes.
But going to what you had said, going to Payless, I remember getting the knockoffs at because I love DC shoes, like the skater shoes. We'd go to the swap meet.
Oh, yeah.
I just spoke to a Gen Z that had no idea what a swap meet was.
Yeah. Does everybody in here know what a swap meet is? Andy, you know what a swap meet is, right? He's like, yes,
I do.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. Okay.
But everyone else in here is Latino. The Gen Zer that you asked, was black, and I'm like, I don't think swap meets is a black thing.
She knew what a farmer's market was,
well,
so
that's
she's
not even
more
a black
white
thing. So yeah, that's an upland thing.
Yeah, right.
No, but yeah, I mean, everyone's different.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had a whole bunch of questions.
What happened? We have questions, so that's what I'm trying to read through right now. Hopefully, Corey could cut out.
One of them is finances, but you guys are talking about money right now.
We talked about that in the first one, right?
Yeah.
In the first one.
Yeah.
Huh? Cut out what? Us figuring out what question we're gonna pick right now.
Sorry about that.
I didn't know we were running the recording already. Okay, let's read the questions. We'll cut out this part just at the beginning, and then we'll pick it. So let's all do a vote. How long is too long to date before marriage? How do you choose your battles in marriage? Not everything is worth fighting over. What kind of boundaries should you set in marriage? How financially ready should you be to get married as a man, and as a woman, what's enough? When's a good time to start thinking about premarital counseling when dating? How do you join finances as a newly married couple? What does submission look like in the dating phase? Does it exist?
I think they already all forgot him.
Okay, so we're choosing
I know, were we picking?
We're starting the episode off.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're the only one we're doing because they're short episodes, so we're only doing one question.
I would say the submission one.
I like the boundaries.
We talked about that last week, though.
Yeah, the submission looked like, that was the, yeah.
It's like a very general.
I think
Which
I honestly think that you could. Oh no, not blending two of them together. Because I was going to say the second and third one, the how do you choose your battles in marriage? What's not everything's worth fighting for, and then what kind of boundaries do you set in marriage? The two of those could kind of bleed into each other if you wanted to.
Yeah, and just know in the future you guys can chime in.
Yeah,
like you can unmute yourselves and stuff like that. Yeah. I
Absolutely.
meant to say that. Okay. All right, everybody. So welcome to Beyond I Do. What a great start to the podcast already. Today, we're recording this, our third episode we're recording, but today launched our first actual, or not today. Was it today?
Yeah, this morning
at 6 a.m.
Yes.
I was up at 6 a.m. for whatever reason. My wife was working out. The treadmill was making noise, so it woke me up. And so I was like, oh yeah, Beyond I Do launches today. Let me pull it up. There were like 25 people watching it live at 6 a.m., which I was like, that is crazy. And already it's like only been up for like 5 hours or 4 hours, and it's got 400 or 500 views already, or something like that.
And your TikTok, one of your videos on Beyond I Do TikTok has 64,000 views already. So.
In what, 1 hour? Is that what you said?
No, like 2 hours ago.
2 hours? 2 hours?
Whoop, whoop.
Your boy finally did it.
You going up there.
Corey.
For sure gonna hit 100K.
1 year doing Beyond the Letter, I got nothing. One single post on Beyond I Do, man. Look, but we always knew it. We knew that relationship stuff was like, was just like sugar to a baby. Like people love talking relationship stuff. And people love disagreeing with relationship stuff. So
always.
That is nice. So thank you everybody who supported the launch. Really felt, I personally felt the love.
Oh, I do.
I don't know why you're getting tagged so much on it and I'm not getting tagged at all. I'll see you get all tagged and then I'll be like, oh, where's mine? And
They're
I'll
my
be like,
friends. They're all my friends.
I didn't get nothing.
Oh,
women love to support women.
They do.
And then guys, it's just like we
They're
get a
amazing.
cave, we crawl in a hole, and you get one guy every once in a while. It's like, yo, hey, that thing you're doing, it's cool. Like they don't even know the name of it.
Well,
like,
they would.
that's cool,
Wouldn't that emasculate them?
Yeah.
They would feel like if I'm like, yeah, bro, go for it. Unless you're like on a team, they would probably be like, oh yeah.
Maybe. No, I get a lot of good love from guys. I don't want to make it sound like I don't. I get a lot of great DMs from guys.
I mean, you're
and
blowing
stuff
up
like
now.
that. Yeah, I got 64,000 views on a post in 2 hours.
65.
65. It's going up by the minute. Literally, by the end of this podcast, we'll have Nancy hit a refresh on it. And
We should just have a ticker behind us.
where it's at. I know, right? Yeah, that's crazy. That's so funny.
Wow.
One day we will, honestly, this is probably more for Beyond the Letter, but we will do something one day in our church or in the level that teaches people how we done what we did. Because they're we have a system to what we do in social media, and I know people who own businesses and stuff want to know, how do I create good content that people want to watch? One day we'll do something. We are going to have a Beyond Wealth podcast one day, and it won't be like every week like we do this, but that'll go more into like business, entrepreneurship, and maybe in that setting we'll teach a little more about what we do in our social stuff to do launches and stuff like that. Because it's strategic. This is great. We picked our questions of the day that we're going to do. Sometimes, hopefully, people enjoyed last week's episode with Nathan and Sanaz.
Yeah.
That was fun. Nathan spoke more than ever, so that was good. And so this one, we're going to deal with going back into some questions. And so, Ashley, you're going to have to remind me, which one did we choose?
Two and three.
2 and 3.
Yeah.
We're going to blend 2 questions. As always, you can go to our social media page, and you can submit questions either through the DMs or through the link that's there. It lets you submit a question, and every once in a while we'll try to answer them and address them. So we're going to blend 2 questions today. The first question is, how do you choose your battles in marriage? Not everything is worth fighting over. Okay. Second question is, which we'll blend them together kind of, what kind of boundaries do you set in marriage? What do you think this person means when they're talking about what kind of boundaries do you set in marriage? Probably like in-law stuff.
That's what I was wondering. Maybe in-laws, but then I would also
like,
say friendships.
Yeah.
Friendships. I would say boundaries even with your kids.
Yes.
I would say boundaries with your finances. I mean, there's a whole bunch. I think there's a whole, it's an array of boundaries that can be set within a marriage.
I get it now.
Not just.
Thank you for teaching me that. I get it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I really didn't understand it. Okay, so let's do the first one. How do you choose your battles in marriage? Not everything is worth fighting for. Me and Ashley had to choose that last night when I got home from work.
Do share. So anytime I am just a neurotic person to where like, I think someone's going to break in my house every minute of the day. I'm just crazy. And Adam always laughs because I've lived on my own all of college. So now that I'm married with kids, I think someone's going to break in my house. So I like have booby traps all over the house of like not to get in the house.
The other day, we do we get a glass water delivered to our house. Like we use like a little water machine, but it's spring water. So it comes in glass. It's like the 5-gallon thing. The other day I'm leaving the house and I trip over it because she put it in the front door. I said, why did you put this here? She said, if someone broke in, they would knock over the glass. And I'm like, Yeah, I would knock over. I'm going to knock over the glass. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, so there's Booby Traps. Just because now we have a
Oh
new
my
door
gosh.
and it's so quiet when it opens. Our last door we had was loud and would screech. So I was like, if someone opens this door, I know it's going to happen. So I thought, like a week ago, I was like, oh, I'm going to start putting this in front of the door just in case someone breaks in. They'll knock it over and wake us up. But then last night he was at work late, working late. And so we have a lock on our door. And normally I don't lock it. But
On our bedroom door.
On our bedroom door. But for some reason last night I locked it. And you know how you have that old style, like, key thing that you could put in and you have to jiggle it around and kind of open it. Well, I put that back in the room too.
Mind you, 7 minutes earlier, she pulls me up on Find My iPhone and sees that I'm getting food in the drive-in. So she knows I'm on the way home. She's awake at this point. And then when I get home, she's not awake anymore.
Boundaries.
And so she locks our bedroom door.
I did. And then he said he was knocking. Then he calls me and he's like, I'm at the door. And I was like, okay, are you dying? He's like, no, but let me in. I was like, okay, hang on. But he walks in, he's all grumpy. And I was like, oh, hi.
She's like, I heard you knock, and I answered. I go, I've been at our bedroom door, not the front door of the house. Our bedroom door, I've been knocking for 5 minutes.
He's inside the house.
I'm jangling. She's locked our bedroom door.
Bedroom door. He's in the house. He's in the house knocking on
And
our
our
bedroom.
sons are in there with her. They're asleep. So I'm like, if I wake, I'm not going to bang because if I wake them up. So I'm like, doom, 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 waiting a couple minutes. Called her 3 times. She didn't pick up. So finally she's like, what do you want? I'm like, how did you think this was going to turn out when you locked it 10 minutes ago? So speaking of.
Yes.
What is it? How do you not beat up your spouse? How do you choose your battles in marriage and not everything is worth fighting for? It's true. So that happened yesterday.
It did.
Because I was angry, but here's the thing. That number one, there's some elements to it. I have a level of grace because it genuinely, Ashlee has a fear of whatever her schizophrenia is. She's a fear that someone's going to break in. Now, there are given things in our life that have happened where I got a friend in prison that wanted to hurt me. There are people waited in my car who wanted to hurt me before. That's just people who are mentally ill in ministry. And so we have had real life safety concerns. We have a guard dog that comes next month that will hopefully not make my wife feel like she has to lock every door every day of the day because she'll have the dog with her. And so we have this dog guard. I'm doing everything I can to help her with all of her issues. And that's great marriage, is when your spouse has issues that you just would hope would fix overnight.
Yeah.
They don't always. You go, okay, as the husband, how can I do whatever I got to do to help support my wife in whatever it is she has to get over, or whatever it is she's dealing with.
Yeah.
And so I've tried to do, whatever we can, but that regardless, there are times you just want to absolutely lose it on your spouse.
Right. Absolutely. And there was time, so even this morning, because I went back to sleep. I know that he probably was upset, when he went to sleep, but I was like, oh, I'm not going to even deal with it. If he's upset, he'll get over it, sort of thing. And not in a way that I was like, this isn't big enough for him to be super mad at me. Because even this morning, as I was getting ready, I was like, how did it feel to get locked out? And he's like, shut up. And
It's
so
ridiculous.
I in the moment know where sometimes, even as a wife, where I try to de-escalate things, and he knows my personality enough, where I'll try to de-escalate the situation with my humor or goofiness to either that's how I apologize and say I'm sorry, and he knows that that's just my personality. I'm really goofy. I try to be funny, try to be annoying for him to love me back, because that's how I love him. Mm-hmm. Some people may not reciprocate. They'd be like, no, I need a legit apology. I need a sorry. I need to hear your emotions behind it. I need you groveling. But to ease the tension in our relationship, we try to be goofy with one another, to know that wasn't something that serious to take to that next level, or to bicker about. Because I know there have been many of times where we've maybe had disagreements or arguments, and I think we selflessly look into it and say, is this really worth arguing about? Yeah. Is it something that's so little that we're going to create and escalate and ruin the rest of our day, or ruin the rest of our week on something that just doesn't make sense? Like something as locking the door, or something as far as, disagreeing on how to, I would even say this too, is disagreeing, because we had to come to agreement this week on disciplining our son, because I'm very harsh. And I had to reel myself back in, because I know I can go there, and I don't say it would upset you, but I know that I'm hard, to where that could cause friction within our relationship and our marriage on the way that we even discipline our son, to where I had to humble myself and say, is this the right way to discipline? Because I don't want friction between the two of us, because you knew I was going there. You knew I was gonna ring him. Yeah. And I was like,
he's 5 years old. She wants to treat him like he's 16,
right,
half the time.
And so in order for us to where I could cause a disagreement or argument with him, where I feel like the enemy definitely wants to come in and try and stir the pot, I have to seek counsel always in the relationship on how am I reacting in the situation? How am I addressing the situation in our marriage? And is this going to help us win? Are we winning in this marriage? Was this a win of an argument? Was this a win of a disagreement? Did we find peace and unity at the end of this, or are we just pissed off at each other the whole time? Or are we just going to stay angry with each other? So I think for individuals realizing what is worth losing your peace over. And I would say in my marriage, I don't want to have a lot that's going to make me lose my peace in my marriage. There's not a lot that I want friction. There's nothing more that I enjoy than coming home and having peace and unity and cuddling up next to you and the boys, and not being pissed off about, oh, the trash isn't taken out, or this is in disarray. Because, I mean, if you look at our house, I have every right to just have my hair crazy and look wild because it's in disarray. And it's like, you know what? I feel like God's taking me and you and I through a season of chaos just in our home, of getting reconstruction and things done, to say, like,
from floods, two different floods.
Two different floods, yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's taking us through the season of just disarray to say, Ashlee, it's not that serious. Because I know, there's times where we'd be sitting down, hanging out, and all of a sudden I get up and I'm doing something and I'm frustrated and I'm throwing stuff, and you're like, what in that moment just made you lose your peace? And so I feel like God is giving us all this chaos, knowing the season that he's preparing us for, to what is worth losing your peace?
Yeah.
And I think that's the question people have to ask. Is this worth losing my peace?
Yeah. Well, I think, that's what I've learned people struggle with the most, is how to handle their emotions, period. Because your spouse is the person that you love the most and you hate the most. Yeah. And so the very thing.
No emphasis. There's no emphasis on the hate part.
Yeah, but I mean, like, and when I say hate, I'm saying more like not hate, but
right.
They will get on your nerves the most. You also love them the most. They're the person you don't want to live without, while you also could go a month. Sometimes I would love 5 weeks without you, like you can ebb and flow emotionally with this person more than anyone else. And that tends to emphasize, however you are emotionally with your spouse, that will emphasize it even more so. So if you got some anger issues, well, guess what? Your spouse is going to completely make you angry.
Yeah.
If you have insecurity issues, your spouse is going to cause, not even purposely all the time, but you're going to find the greatest insecurities in your spouse. How you are at work with people, your spouse will either see that side of you or the opposite side of you, right? Because they are going to come home and maybe show a different side. So what I would see most of the time is we have people nowadays and always who a lot of times we don't know how to control our emotions. We don't know how to control when we're disappointed. We don't know how to control when we're angry. We don't know how to control when someone's on your nerves. And then you get home and then this happens with your spouse, and then it emphasizes that much more. Yep. And so then you get the chaos arguments that many spouses have, where you have spouses, which I've heard this many times. I can't tell you how many times I've heard of spouses that take off the wedding ring and chuck it across the room, or throw it in the trash, throw it in the backyard, and you don't want to be married, and they hold this thing up as if this is like a gauntlet or something. they chuck it. It's like like I told Ashlee, if you ever did something like that ring would be going to the pawn shop, because I did not save years to be able to afford that ring, to have you act like you're gonna chuck it one day. If that ring comes off your finger, you throw it across the room. Guess what? It's going in my pocket. It's going to the pawn shop.
You have to do that.
Yes. So, but you see that with couples. You see other couples, they storm out and they slam the door. And one of the funniest stories, which I've tried to tell, but Jermaine's not here today, but I'll still tell it because I've told him I wanted to tell it. When they first got married, Jermaine and Jasmine, Jermaine's on Beyond the Letter a lot. He's just not here today. But his wife, Jasmine, they're newly married. He calls me at like 1 a.m. and he's like, bro, he's like, I'm out here in the street in my boxers. He's like, my private parts are going everywhere. And he's like, I'm out here naked out in these streets because me and Jasmine got in an argument and she ran to the car and she took off for a drive. Yeah. And he goes, should she be driving at 1 a.m. angry, and they'd probably been married like 9 months. Yeah. And it was something about the in-laws. Yep. So it was about his mom. Yep. And so, again, it's where you go boundaries and stuff like that, which today he says, I shouldn't have done it the way I did it. But in the moment, he thinks he's right, thinks he's doing what's best. Yep. Jasmine responds by grabbing the keys, running out at 1 a.m., saying, I need to go for a drive. You have the husband who's safety concerned, right? Yep. Safety goes, she's angry, blah, blah. He runs outside. He's on the phone with me trying to get me to get Ashlee to call her and call her back, right? Yep. So there's this chaos because what happens is you're newly married and she's like, I'm used to being able to get space when I argue and you're just there, Jermaine, and that's how it is with your spouse in general. It's like you're there and I'm angry and so some they'll slam doors. They want that person to know this is how angry I am. Absolutely. This is how upset I am. So they're either yelling, they're either crying, they're throwing something, they're running upstairs, they completely shut down, they go away and go for a drive. And so he's calling us saying, is this right? I'm saying, no, it's not that it's not right. She could need space when you argue, but yes, you guys are going to have to come to terms with what does that look like? Because 100%. Yes, driving away at 1 a.m. Is not going to give anyone peace, especially as a man. If your wife drives away at 1 a.m., all you're concerned with is her safety. So you get these elements, right? Again, it's how do I control my emotions? Mm-hmm. How do I understand the issue that we're having so that, because with my spouse, it's all going to be exemplified. It's all going to be bigger than it would be with anyone else. And so I think more than anything, it's not only just coming to terms with your spouse on, hey, how do you respond when you're angry? This is how I respond when I'm angry. Yeah. But also being able to regulate your expectations and your emotions of what you're expecting from that person. So for me, like when I was upset last night and I just wanted to get in and I'm knocking for 5 minutes, immediately my mind goes towards, this is a genuine fear of my wife's. It's super annoying, but I'm working on some resolves right now. So if it's something that's regularly upsetting me, first thing I want to do as a husband is say, how can I serve my wife that this doesn't become a regular issues, right? One thing that makes you really angry is when the boys take off their shoes at the front door and don't put them up in their room, right? So, because then you end up tripping on them and they stay there for 2-3 days or whatever. So you have a thing you always tell the boys, take off your shoes, put them up in your room. Thomas, who's 2, you make him even do it, right? So you look at that and you go, okay, it doesn't bother me as much. But as a husband, I know that this really bothers Ashlee. So when you're not home yet and I pick up the boys from school, I'm telling myself, I want to make my wife's life easier when she comes home. I need to make sure these boys put their shoes up in their bedroom. Yeah. Because I know what happens if I don't tell them to put it in their bedroom. You're going to come home. You're not even necessarily going to yell at me. You might, but you're going to yell at them to say, you guys know. Right. And then it's going to take you 30 minutes to come back to earth from just being annoyed. And I don't even know what type of day you had on top of that, right? Right. So I look at that. I'm just thinking to myself, like, okay, I know my wife well enough to know that certain things that upset her and get on her nerves or get her to a point where she can't recover as fast. Right. What can I do to help alleviate that? That's good. And if I don't, then I'm just being selfish. That's all it is. And we can admit that all day. When we sit down with couples, we're like, hey, can we just admit that like you're selfish, we're selfish? Like, can we admit that this is being driven from our selfishness
Absolutely.
and not this idea of, well, I just like things this way. It's like, or this is the way it ought to be. It's like, no, it's like you're being selfish and we're being selfish. I'm not saying that's not that it's not okay.
Right.
What I am saying though, if you want a house that's harmonious and peaceful, then you both are going to have to be selfless.
Absolutely.
It's the only way you can have a harmonious house. And for me, that's mostly the mentality that I try to have at all times. Is what I want at home is I want to, and I say this all the time when we do sprints and counseling, like I want to come home and I want to enjoy my home.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy being in my house. I want to enjoy being whatever I want to do, whether it's watch TV or
Right.
hang out with I want to enjoy what I'm doing. So in order to do that, I have to create harmony,
Right.
harmony with my kids, harmony with my spouse. What that takes from me is I have to regulate what gets me angry.
Absolutely.
That's,
Yeah.
what.
And,
So-
and I think it's also something like, what do we say, that the wives are the thermostats? The wives are the thermostats.
Set the temperature of the house.
Set the temperature
Yep.
of the house. But also sometimes, like you just said, the husband can regulate that temperature, though, as well. Although we can set it, like you said, if I come home and I am like, I'm tired, I see the shoes on the floor, it's going to a 10
Yeah.
real quick. We just know my personality is going to 10. Why are these shoes on the ground? Go take them upstairs. I don't know what you guys have been doing this whole time, sitting here doing nothing. Your shoes should have been upstairs. You could have then said, hey, boys, we already discussed this. I told you your mom was going to come home. And you've done that before, where you've then checked my temperature in the sense of like, okay, it was already talked about. They did discuss it. My husband is on top of it to where I saw it. They may have not have listened because whatever reason, going back to watching something or eating or whatever, or just being disobedient and not listening.
Yeah.
But it also does give comfort knowing that my husband knows that this is a thing that I like to be done. And so as a husband or a spouse, you can regulate my temperature just as much as I can regulate the temperature in a room too. Because if I'm seeing the action of you caring, because I'll be completely honest, as an example as well, since the boys have started school in the morning, you have regulated the temperature in the morning. Because I remember when they were going to APL, just daycare, it was chaos, screaming, fighting, getting out of the house. But since they started school, you iron the clothes in the morning. You take them down for breakfast. I'm able to get ready so that I can go straight into work. Because of your calmness, you have regulated the temperature in the morning to where it's not like, we're running late, let's get out of the house. And that's just my personality, because you know me well enough that I go 0 to 100.
Yeah.
And so from that, it's recognizing that in this moment, my wife can set the temperature for everyone, and not only for her, but then it affects the kids. It affects their emotions. It could affect their day. Now it's going to be a burden on me as well, because now I knew she's probably mad. Who knows what else she may be throwing into the pot with of emotions, what else she may be seeing, because we as moms, we not only see our kids' clothes, we see the shoes on the ground, see the clothes not folded, we see the dishes not done, we see there's crumbs on the counter. All of these things within our emotions, like you said, women are very complex and hard to gather. So it's you as a man getting to the one point and honing in on that and saying, like, this is one area I'm going to relieve from her and show peace. And show pretty much no emotion to where she has to come back and kind of match me as well.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think that for us, and I know a lot of relationships aren't like that. We have a really good, healthy balance in our relationship for that. But there have been times where you're like, oh gosh, guys, let's just go to the room. You're like, there's no coming down from this. Let her have her moment. Let her clean the house, sort of thing. But then it's also me. It's a very selfless, just being in a relationship is very selfless. And it's also self-reflecting. I think that's where a lot of people, when you said a lot of people, when you become selfish, is when there's just disarray, there's disunity, that there's anger, there's strife, there's no peace when people are selfish in a relationship. Because a lot of people are saying, like, going back to the question of like, what's worth getting angry over? Only you know. Only you will know what's worth it to you to get angry over. But I rather have the joy and the laughter and the peace in my home, because that is my comfort. That is our space. When Adam and I have hard conversations, we try not to even have them at home. We try to have them over a dinner table in front of people at a restaurant, to where we know we can't get loud and slam doors and walk away and be emotional. I mean, tears have flown at those, because we're trying to figure this thing out, as far as like, how can we do better in our marriage as a husband and a wife, or as a mother and a father. But it's you personally finding what is worth losing your peace. Is it taking out the trash? It's really minimal. It's very small.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. Obviously, there's sometimes it's said man's supposed to always take out the trash, and it's okay if you have to take out the trash every now and then. But it's not worth me lose. Oh, I asked him 5 minutes ago and he still didn't take it out. He'll get to it. Leave it there, and if not, then we'll all just stare at it.
Right.
But it's becoming selfless and understanding what is it really that you're getting upset over, and is it worth it?
Yeah.
I find multiple times, I think we even talked about it yesterday in a counseling session, where like there's a humility that has to come into this relationship of a self-reflection, to say, okay, if they're doing that, what am I doing too that could be causing anger towards this person? There has to be a reason why they're angry as well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's work, maybe it's stress, maybe it's the home being in disarray and how it is. And how do we not just match each other's anger, but create peace, like you said?
Well,
So-
that's the thing. What? Go ahead, Nance.
I was just gonna ask.
Yeah.
So, how do you know when to bring it? So, I didn't grow up with watching my parents go to counseling. You know,
Yeah.
they've, done it themselves. So, how do you know? Is it like, oh, this is our 10th fight, so now we got to go seek counsel, or is it just a
Or like, when's
constant
the right time to go to counseling?
Yeah, or get somebody involved, because you guys have Nathan and Sanaz.
Yeah.
So when is
Yeah.
it that you determine? And I'm sure it's case by case, but like, just
Well, the
so-
thing I always lead in first is first step to try to be in community with other married couples. So having perspective, like the more me and Ashley got in community, we realized, man, we don't have sex enough. Like we're with these other people, and often they're talking about it. Like I don't think we do.
Right.
And then it opened up a conversation to be like, do you think? And then me as the honest husband, I'm like, no, I don't think we have sex enough. And then you go to and then you, like, if you're in community, you become aware. And then we have other friends with us that maybe have unhealthier habits, and then they'll tell us, man, when we hang out with you guys, we do better over the next 30 days. Like we're challenged better. So I think being around healthy couples and being around couples is very important. So that's an element that isn't in the counseling level, but it's like there'd be a lot of things you can avoid. You don't even need counseling for,
Right.
if you just had other couples that you hung around, did life around, and had honest conversations with. Like, hey, do your kids, when do you yell at them? And blah, blah, blah. Do they ever get your nerves on this? Okay, I'm glad I'm not alone. And it gives perspective. Or you hear from another woman like, no, that doesn't bother me. You're like, why?
Right.
And it really expands your
Right.
understanding. So that's important. I think it's time to go to counseling when really you can't stand each other. I don't think everyone needs to do preventative counseling, right? Because that takes time and energy, and so there's books you can read, and you can watch videos, and we got our Beyond I Do course coming out soon. It's like you could do that stuff on your own, but when you really start to go like, man, we're arguing a lot. Our intimacy has gone less and less and less. We're becoming roommates. Like, don't walk to counseling, run to counseling, at that point. Because what we're talking about in terms of arguing, that's just an expression of what could already be an unhealthy marriage. So a lot of times when we sit down with couples and they want to fix a particular thing, what we first want to dive into, this could be way deeper. Because if your marriage is unhealthy, and you can say, well, we just don't want to argue as much. And it's like, well, there's a lot of other deeper things, because that arguing is coming rooted from something. Like, I don't feel like you care. I don't feel like we're connected. I don't even like you anymore. Like eyes roll. So it's like, we could talk about all day being selfless and sacrificial,
Right.
but they're going to go, I'm not being selfless for this bum.
Right.
Or he may say, I'm not being selfish for her. She don't care about me.
Right.
So the first thing holistically I would say is you want to pursue and do what you need to do to create a healthy marriage. And so that could look like establishing a time where you start redating each other. You know, I'm big on writing stuff down and talking to each other. So you could sit down and, you know, I've always talked about like my marriage accountability form that I instituted in marriage counseling, which was like, you start with this little list that says, I married you because your most attractive feature to me is blank. You make me happy when you blank. I love when you say words like blank. You also hurt me when you use words like blank. I wish you would grow in this area, right? So when we do counseling, and we've done that now for probably 7 years, we've had that marriage accountability form. And we have, because when you start to write stuff down and have to start talking about it, you could start to really see where you've missed the mark.
Right.
Like me and Ashley could go through a season where we're just bickering, but then like when we go on a date and Ashley's just like, you haven't been home a lot. And I'm like, oh, well, that's a problem.
Right.
I haven't been home.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
or you're not helping with the boys. I feel like I'm a single mother over here. Like, oh, well, shoot, date night's not gonna fix that.
Right,
I gotta
right.
start helping with the boys, you know,
Right,
or I
right.
gotta be more present at home, you know. There'll be times, and I think every millennial parent will know this, like your kids sometimes will be like, can you get off your phone and play with us? You know? And then when they say that, you go, well, shoot, am I really been on my phone that much? It's like, yeah, you have.
Yeah.
Matthias would joke sometimes, like, Daddy, you keep acting up, I'm going to take your phone away. Because he knows I live on my work is on my phone. And
Yeah.
I also detox through my phone watching YouTube or whatever too as well. So, you know, your kids start to pick up as well, like what's important to you and,
Right.
and stuff. And so you have to be able to self-evaluate.
Right.
You know, what am I doing habitually that
Yeah.
I need to change? So it's a great principle of Jesus. Like
Right.
you got to take the log out of your own eye before you take the speck. So before I approach my wife, and if I need to share with my wife, hey, there are some things that I feel like you're missing the mark on that are really frustrating me. First, I have to go, Adam, get prepared that the road goes two ways, goes both ways. So when I share this, I got to get ready for what gets shared back.
Right.
And I got to be willing to do the work
Right.
of what it takes. Because there's many times we'll sit with couples. Both couples need to change some things. But both couples are saying, I will do it when that one does it first. And then the only thing I can say to those couples, it happens all the time. The only thing I ever say is one of y'all is going to have to be selfless and humble first. That's what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Because both of you are waiting
For the other person.
for the other person to make the first selfless move.
Absolutely.
So what? And then, you know, the wife, well, that's not fair. The husband, well, that's not fair. And
Don't know what to tell you. Yeah.
one of y'all got to take that speck out first.
Absolutely.
One of y'all have to make that first initiation. One of you have to make that first effort. And I can't tell you which one. I
Right.
mean, we can roll dice, but it's
Right,
like
right.
one of y'all have to take that lead. For me, I've always believed that that's the man's role. The man leads. The man gets the responsibility of leadership. So the man has to initiate. So if me and Ashley were sitting at the table and Ashley were saying, hey, I need you to make some adjustments over the next 90 days, and I'm saying I need you to make adjustments over the next 90 days, I would take the personal responsibility to say, as the husband, as the father, as the man, I need to make the first initiations
Right.
to make the adjustments that I need to make.
Yeah.
I think that's the responsibility of the man. I feel like we got a lot of young men nowadays who are like, well, that's not fair.
Right.
Life isn't fair.
No.
That's not life.
Right. Right.
I would love to talk about fairness all day, but God put us on the planet, made us individually unique for a reason. I can't live without my wife, and my wife can't live without with me. There are certain things that I got to do, and there's certain things my wife got to do.
Right.
And so, you know, I see that all the time on our Instagram comments. There's always, whenever we talk about men leading, whenever we talk about men being, you know, the first to make the sacrifice, the men, and then these young men go, why is it always the men? Why is it always, I'm like, not in terms of bashing men, but just the man who needs to step up.
Right.
It's like, why can't the girl make the first move? That's the men think they're making a manly decision by saying the woman should make the first move. I'm like, no, man, that's not the way it is. We bear the responsibility. We also bear the blessing of what it does to be a man, to lead, to initiate with my wife.
Yep.
And I also have to initiate that healing and initiate that leadership in the home and in her life.
Yeah.
So, and there are times, I mean, a lot of times there's a lot of things that the wife should be initiating. But as the man, if my wife said, I need you to do this, I need to say, well, I'll wait and see, tick for tack. I'll wait until she does it. No, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to work to do that as hard as it is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a couple guy friends. I'm going to say, hey, man, Ashley's really needs this right now from me. Like, just help me keep accountable with this because I don't really want to do it. So there's that honesty sometimes. Like, I don't want to do it, but I want peace in our home. I want to enjoy the home. I don't want to ever get to a place where we live separate lives.
Right.
Where you have your space in the house and I have my space in the house and we never see each other and our kids never see each other.
Right.
You know, that's where, you're talking about signs of like going to counseling, like when those become the signs, right? Would you sleep in separate bedrooms for a reason that you don't stand each other, not for any other reason. I know other couples that work night shifts and opposite shifts, so they sleep separately because it's like what it has to do for their work schedule. Outside of that stuff, like when you start seeing yourself sleeping in different beds, you come home, she go to one place, he go to one place, he goes to man cave, she goes here, and then you see each other at dinner just to put it on for the kids, and then you go to church to put it on for the kids. Like that's the time to go through counseling, read a book, challenge each other, and put that out there.
Yeah, and I think those are unhealthy boundaries that you're setting within your relationship.
Yep.
If you're allowing yourselves to cause a boundary with your spouse. I think that there are healthy boundaries with your spouse when it comes to, I would say, like when you're having your time and you need your time with your friends, because we know that that is a healthy boundary. But also, I know that you've created a healthy boundary with me and work, that you're like, I don't need you taking on the stress from work on you. Yeah. Allow me as the man to take that boundary on, and I'm going to keep that because it's not a weight that I need you to bear. I need you to bear the family weight, sort of thing. And so I think that a lot of couples are creating boundaries within their own marriage, thinking that it's healthy, like, oh, we'll just ignore this, or oh, I'll keep you from this, or knowing that. And it's like, no, you're setting yourself up for failure because you're setting these boundaries that are unrealistic. Let's just say like a communication, like you go to your side, I'm setting a boundary so I don't hurt your feelings. No, that's not a healthy boundary.
Yeah.
Like these are conversations that need to be had, communication.
Or
needs to be had.
Unhealthy boundaries like Thanksgiving. It's like the husband go to his family and then she goes to hers.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, we found it works for us. And it's like, maybe it does.
Right.
But I would argue, that stuff ends up revealing itself in some way, shape, or form. Like that's why to me, like the best boundaries are the ones that you both can agree on. And we always talk about being unified. Like those are the best boundaries. Right. The best boundaries you could set in your marriage for your life are the ones that you and I both say, yes, we agree that's the right thing to do.
Right.
Not, well, you do it and I'll do it. And it's not that we agree with it. It's just, we're just kind of, we'll pray it figures itself out. It rarely ever figures itself out. No. So, being unified in that sense that say, why can't we do 1 hour at your parents and 1 hour at mine?
Right.
Why did that? Well, because my family expects 3 hours. That's not your family.
Right.
That was your family.
Yep.
This is your family.
Yep.
The person that you stared in the altar and you let the pastor say that you are to leave and cleave. You leave your father and mother. That is your family. Them people you rocked with for 18 years, 20 years, whatever it is, that is your blood, but your family, your family is that guy and girl that you looked at the altar that you said you're going to start something with. So that is something that you and I had heavy conversation on our first 3 years is what does family look like?
Yep.
Who is family? Who is not family?
Yep.
There are people that Ashley considered family that I didn't consider family in her life. That over the years, it's just we've had to say, man, the principle is this is our family. There are people we love that we consider family, and many are blood and my blood, but the priority is the person that I said yes to.
Absolutely.
And then the children that we had together. Yeah. That is the family. And there was one day that my son will get married. My
Right.
sons both will get married if that's something they choose to do, in which I will tell them, you don't owe nothing to us.
yeah.
I would love to be in your life. I would love that we be a family,
Right.
but your priority is that girl that you're going to say yes to. That is who you need to prioritize.
Right.
So if Thanksgiving is on a Thursday and you're going to come on Wednesday because you guys have a busy day, your mom and I, we're going to get through.
Right.
Because I got your mom at the end of the day.
Right.
So I'm good with. But now if you don't enjoy your spouse,
Yeah.
then you're going to live through your children.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to live through all the other extracurriculars. You're going to define yourself by what your children do and where they go and if you can't find a way to love this person and enjoy this person and have boundaries that succeed your marriage,
Right.
then you're going to look for everything and anything to find happiness in that isn't your spouse.
Absolutely.
Bible says, he that find a good wife obtains favor from the Lord.
Right.
So favor's tied towards finding a good wife.
Right.
And that becomes favorable to the Lord. So I think when it comes to arguing and boundaries, what I would always just tell a couple is when we're sitting there, is like, let's lead first with what do we have to do to get your relationship healthy. Then, and some of it will be the arguing or the boundaries. That's some elements of it. But there could be, if you're already unhealthy, like if there was a couple we were going into premarital, it's much different than the conversation leads, because it's not unhealthy.
Right.
You're like, you feel like the world is your oyster, at that
Absolutely.
moment. And then we know once past the honeymoon phase comes and you're like, okay, there's real work that has to happen. So when you hit that point, that's where you first say, okay, what does the marriage in its healthiest form look like for you guys?
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
Ashlee and I would be a little bit different because we actually enjoy each other
Right.
in a romantic sense, but also in a friendship sense. So my wife is one of the guys.
Yeah.
Like my wife can hang out with all of my guy friends and none of my guy friends would feel like it was my wife there. They'd be like, oh, that's the homie.
Yeah.
So it's a little every marriage is going to have little different nuances that like some men would be like, man, I don't want my wife going to games with me.
Right.
Because I don't, like,
Yeah.
she's gonna be staring at her phone the whole time or whatever.
right.
Ashlee is the opposite. She's a jock. She's cheering. She's high fiving all the guys around her. Like when I'm doing the opposite, I don't want no one to touch me. So,
Yeah, but I mean,
every marriage different in like what's your important, what you need from your spouse. But you got to be
Yeah.
able to talk about that.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to something like for my boundaries with Adam, they're very, I wouldn't say loose, but I want the best husband that I can have. And in order for me to have the best husband I can have, I have to be selfless and know his desires and his needs in our relationship. And does that mean I'm on the back burner? No, I'm spoiled rotten. Absolutely. If Adam could give me the world, he'd give me the world. But it comes down to the boundaries that I know that's the type of man he is. So that's why the reins are so loose. So when we talk about boundaries, like even hanging out with his friends and he's like, hey, Ashlee, I need a guy's day. Absolutely. Because I know I'm not getting the short end of the stick ever. If there was ever a time, though, too, where I would be like, hey, like you said, hey, you've been super busy. I need you to trail back a little bit and hang out with the family. You hear me. But then it's one of those give and take sort of thing where you're in a joyous way to say, well, we've hung out the past 3 weeks. Absolutely, you can have a guy's night. I'm sure you're sick of us, sort of thing. So as a wife, I want the best version of my husband because I know he loves, honors, respects, and trusts me within my home, within our marriage, with our kids. So I'm, as a wife, very loose when it comes to his time with his friends or even time at work because I know he is very mindful and very intentional when it comes to our time. So when it comes to our time, I know he's very intentional. He's very giving. He's very loving. So when it comes as a wife, he's giving me that much security. I don't have to worry about his coming and his goings. Where I know in a lot of relationships, they're saying like, well, boundaries, I can't stand his friends. I can't do this. Well, then that's another issue, because if his friends aren't godly, they're not in a godly community, they aren't taking accountability and responsibility, and they're talking foolish, of course my husband's not hanging out with them. There have been many of friends that Adam has had where I'm like, I've tried to put pauses on, but then as a wife too, I had to pull back the reins and say, you'll see for yourself. And,
Right.
and trust my intuition and my discernment that I have to say, I know my husband still has character, has morals, has ethics, and would never do anything to cross those lines, but he has to learn himself in this relationship that I know it's not good for him, but God will reveal that. It's not my place, because it's not my place to always bicker and be mad at him and talk down to him, because then that's just going to push him away from me even more.
Yeah.
So as a wife, I want the best version of him, but also I'm not his mother. So I can't always tell him what to do. I can be an advocate to say, this is a person I really don't care for, but it's up to you. And you'll see, and hopefully God will reveal it, and I'll pray him out. But but as a wife, I don't ever want to be a mother. I'm not your mother. That's the farthest thing. That's where I draw my boundary line.
Yeah.
And to feel like I'm always talking to you like a mother, that's tiring. I got 2 kids already.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I don't have the personality that, even if people see me and my mom hanging around, it's not
Right.
really like a mother-son when me and my
No.
mom hang out. It's different than when Nathan and Caleb hang out with my mom.
Very
Me and my mom, because I don't like being. I don't know what it is. I don't like being mothered. I don't like being fathered.
No.
So that idea. I'm very open to being. I'm teachable, and I like mentors, and I love all that stuff. But the moment you step into a forced mother phase with me, or forced father phase that I didn't ask you to be in, like I boundary up so fast, and I close off really fast. So even my relationship with my mom, like it's
Right.
my mom,
It's the best.
more so it's like she don't, she's not like, Adam, this is what you need to do, blah 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 blah. She's more so like, oh, you silly, like you're like, hey mom, I just bought a new gun, like don't shoot your foot.
Yeah.
Like she very much like
Very.
loose with it, which that's how I respond. I respond to that. So yeah, I couldn't do, there are men who like that, but I couldn't have a wife that was also my mother, telling me when to do my laundry, and telling me what to do with my whole life. Like, hey, on Saturday we're doing this. We're going to do this with the kids and that.
Yeah.
Like there's certain things where you do take the lead in helping, but I also add value. Like we're going on
Right.
vacation. I'm helping what we're doing. I'm not like, yeah, whatever you say, mom,
Right.
You did everything and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And so, but again, you have to find what is healthy and works for your
You.
relationship.
Yep.
And that's where sitting down and having a conversation, and then obviously through years of being married and continually dialoguing, that's where you can find what type of couple that you have, because there are a lot of couples that I really respect that are just dynamically different than us,
Right.
and they're healthy.
Right.
Like you have Aaron and Erica, who we're very close to. They're dynamically in how their marriage structures and their day to day is very different than ours, but they're
Yes.
very healthy in the way that they
Yes.
do in their marriage and in their
Yes.
relationship, right? So Nathan and Sanaz, very dynamically different, but that's why it comes down to, what do we need as a spouse, and how do we limit being around each other all the time, and limit being annoyed with each other, arguing with each other, not just arguing, but getting mad at each other, and all those things like that. You have to continue to talk about those things.
Absolutely. And I think that just goes into, like you said, having community, not only as couples, but it's community individually, and healthy community individually, like having the right girlfriends in your corner, having the right guy friends in your corner, just so you can even bounce off those ideas or those thoughts or those feelings that you may have to get different insight. Because like that's the same thing, like when I talk to other women who have kids, like, how do you deal with something like that? How are you dealing with a behavioral issue with your kids? How did you, because I'm the iron fist, like that's how I was raised. And they're like, have you ever just tried talking to him? And I'm like, what? That gentle parenting? They're like, try it. Maybe he'll respond. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but they're giving options and giving different things for your kids that could possibly benefit, because I've never raised a kid in my life. So now going in this different season of setting boundaries with my kids, you can't treat every kid the same. Thomas and Matthias are on 2 separate planets. And Thomas, you can't do the iron fist because he'll do it back. Yeah. And then Matthias, he's very sweet and loving and kind. And so it's having that community around you to where most of my girlfriends are like, that are obviously are more seasoned and have older kids, they're like, let them be kids. And I'm like, what does that mean? They're like, let them make mistakes. I'm like, no. And they're like, yes, let them be kids. Every time we've ever hung out with them, leave them alone. They're like, they're not going to be prim, proper robots. And I'm trying to loosen the reins on that boundary because I am their mother. Yeah. So that's so different for me. But yeah, just making sure you have just the healthy boundaries within the relationships and making sure you are having those conversations, because I know even just boundaries is a hard conversation to have. Like you talk about the in-laws. I remember when we got married at my wedding, I don't know if you remember what my dad said. He did multiple speeches. And one of the speeches he said, he was praying for us before dinner. He's like, I just got to say one thing before I pray over this dinner. This marriage right here ain't none of y'all's business. Yeah. So don't get in it. And so then he's like, all right, let's pray. And so, but that's so true when it comes down to even the boundaries that you set with your family. I knew that even dating you. I think I even told you, my family knows nothing about you while we were dating, because it was something different. And not that I didn't want them to know you, but I knew it was something special where I said, I only know if this is exposed, that they'll maybe try to affect it and not have us together. But I felt like in this relationship, sometimes there's certain things that you don't need to tell everybody. Because the last thing I wanted, because I knew the route that we were going, was them to, he ain't always on. He's always working. He's always this. You were complaining about him. So I think sometimes it's even healthy boundaries when you're dating someone to be mindful of how much you share about that person. Now, if it's red flags, share it right away and they'll get you to break up with the person. If it's character flaws and all that stuff. But if it's things that are like you said about the little things that really don't, he doesn't open the door for me. Is that really something that you're going to get mad about, that you told your parents now because your dad opens the door for your mom all the time? Well, then tell the person that, hey, I'd like for you to open the door. But it's getting into that mindset of sometimes everything doesn't need to be shared with everyone when you're in a dating season. Yeah. Especially when it comes to the person that you're trying to be with. As long as their character is in line, as long as their morals and ethics are in line, as long as the non-negotiables are in line with what you have desired for yourself and have prayed for and asked for from God, I think that sometimes you have to set boundaries with your family, because it's only going to be toxic if you just allow them in so much. Because like you said, right when you get married, you leave and cleave. Now, anytime, I'll tell you this very transparently, if I were to ever complain to my mom about you right now, which I have, shocking, right? I've complained to my mom about you.
You have?
Yeah,
That's
I have,
news.
right?
Oh.
Yeah, right?
What'd you say?
No, yeah, right? So no, it's just like little dumb stuff. And she doesn't respond. She doesn't, if you know my mother, she responds. Yeah. So it's something where she, as a mother, has now seen us in a marriage where she's like, that's your problem at the end of the day. Like, and not as a mother, not trying to fix it or help it, but she's like, okay, so how's the rest of your day? She'll change the subject. And knowing my mom back then, she would have probably given an opinion if we were dating, like, maybe he's not the one, maybe you shouldn't be with him. But now that you're my husband, it's not to say that she doesn't want to give insight, but she's respecting her boundaries where she's like, this isn't my marriage. Yeah. This isn't something you've welcomed me in from the beginning. So why put a place now, or why put me in place now when I wasn't, not to say it wasn't welcomed, but like leave and cleave. She knows her boundaries. So it was just unique to see, like, it only happened like once or twice.
Just so you know, I've never complained about you to anyone.
Oh, you're such a liar. You're such a liar.
Gabe. On,
see, look at, he can't even say anything. He can't even say anything.
Do I not talk her up every time?
Oh my gosh, I'm the queen of Sheba. Right. Yeah, you're such a liar.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, no, my husband's perfect, right?
I have a question.
So what
about Wait, were you going to say something?
No, Gabe can't
Gabe's gonna
even.
say
Gabe
something.
can't even look at me.
I was gonna say that you're the jewel in his crown.
Oh, boom! Oh
See, man,
gosh.
So,
Let's close with this, Nancy.
okay,
gosh, you're a
so
mess.
obviously when you're single, you have a lot of time that you can take on your own. You can be like, friends, I don't want to see you for a month. I'm out.
Yeah.
So, but what about when you're married? What do you think is healthy for alone time? Like your husband's like, hey, I want to go for a weekend. I need alone time. Is it? Or I'm sure it's case by case, but alone time in marriage.
A
how
weekend,
does that look?
a guy going a weekend by himself, alone time.
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm sure that's not the case, but
I'm like,
you
what
know,
are you doing?
Text
You
him,
can do
call
it by
him.
yourself, right? No, if you went with the guys, like it's one of those things. We always laugh though, because we're always like, oh, you guys are gonna get a guy time. We're gonna get a girl time. So we throw the funny tick for tack out. But if he ever was like, hey, I'm gonna go for a golfing weekend, I don't have a problem with that. It's something where.
Yeah, I think it comes down to what regularity looks like.
Right.
What investment do you have in the family and the home that feels like yeah, I think that not that you earned it, but that like yeah, I think you need that and that's healthy for you and you've really been invested in what we have going on. Like there are times where I'm so busy working and I traveling a lot and like the last thing I would do is tell Ashley like, hey, you good with the boys? I'm gonna go 2 days and just like chill. She'd be like, you just haven't been around enough that type of equity is. Now she would say, yeah, like if I really was like, this is what I really need. She would say, yeah, but I know it would come with friction and just kind of disappointment. Like, wow, you're gonna go away or whatever. So, you know what I try to do is I book things very far in advance. So I've never hit her with like, hey, next week my guys are gonna go do
Never.
X, Y, and Z. Can I
Never.
go? Like, can we go do it? So we're gonna celebrate so and so's birthday, and we're gonna go next weekend, and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, that happens so last minute. Where if we're gonna do a golf thing, I mean, if it's gonna happen in July, we're talking about it in April, you know,
Right.
with the guys and scheduling that. But also, you know, I try to. Most of my friends are very driven and very busy, so their level of aptitude to be able to drop whatever is about as much as mine. So we can't just drop whatever. So we communicate most of the time, but I tend to. You know, I tend to get what I need when they go to sleep or in the morning when she's gone, dropping them off to school. I mean, men overall are most men, not all, but are pretty solitary guys as it is. So we do find it where we need it. You're talking about the opposite. Most men actually have no friends, have no community, have no relationship. So you know, some wives would say, "Oh, please God, let him go away overnight and find a friend."
Get him away
you
from
know?
me.
Or you have girls where you know, the friends he has are not any good. You know, they have affairs, they're cheating all the time, they just wild. And so the wife goes, man, I hate when he hangs out with those friends. So those are kind of some of the dynamics you feel a lot of times in that sense. But overall, I mean, you're talking about, I think what's realistic for a guy, depending on what your hobby is, but, you know, maybe 2 times a year, 2-3 days,
Yeah.
you know, that you're going away and either hunting or fishing or whatever your interest is, going to a game with your friends.
But
I tend to do like a golf thing once
Yeah.
a year. And
Yeah, but I
you
think
know,
it comes down to just the healthy communication of
Yeah.
just saying what you need as a spouse in that moment. Because I know there are times too where I know he says he gets it a lot just with the guy friends, but if he's ever like, hey, so-and-so needs this, and I know so-and-so, I'm like, and he's been gone, I'd be like, I'll sacrifice for this so-and-so just because I know the circumstances that they're in, know their marriage, know what they're going through, knowing that they need this time away more than my husband does. That's something that I, as a wife, am mindful and not that they got to figure it out for themselves. And it's like, no, I understand how important quality time is with the guys because I know that person is probably not getting it as frequent as my husband gets it.
yeah.
For me, you know, I take, you know, I'm very spoiled. my boys go to school, so I can't speak from like a stay-at-home mom perspective, because I know a lot of stay-at-home moms, if I were to ever say, I would encourage that time away, or making sure that you do prioritize a sitter for date nights and evenings out, or even just a mini spa day or a massage. I would do that, just as mental health is very important. And so I don't think a lot of people realize that when it comes to mothering and having kids, that you are your only best version of yourself if you take care of yourself. And so for me, I take care of myself, and I make sure that I'm taken care of, because I know that if I'm not, I can feel it. I can feel the stress. I can feel the anxiety. I can feel the weight of the family, or whatever I'm feeling weighs on me. So for me, I make sure that I'm either going, I have a facial booked, I have a massage booked, or even I know a lot of moms, they have their quality time at the gym, and that is their release. And you don't realize how much release you give when you work out and have that, what is it? I don't want to be wrong. Estrogen that's released? What is it?
No. No, not serotonin. It's
we'll get the word.
Yeah.
All viewers say the word. But it's released to where you feel good after, and that's majority. People will say, "Oh, you love working out." No, I hate working out. I like how I feel after, though.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's, what'd you say?
Dopamine.
Thank you. Is I like how I feel after, and Adam appreciates how I feel after too, because I'm more released. I'm more relaxed.
Ashley, hers is fitness, so I make space all the time. Like,
yes.
If I wake up, like today, she's on the treadmill. And I know what time the boys have to get ready. I'm like, okay, let me turn the iron on. Let me start helping her iron. Not like, hey, babe, you're going to be late, while I'm going downstairs to have a cup of coffee, right? Yeah. Like, you're going to be late if you don't get off the treadmill. Like, I know that's important to her. Yeah. She knows what, and again, every couple's different. We'll close with this. What's important to me is I like to work. Yeah. I like hard work. Mm-hmm. I feel accomplishment from working. So for me, mine is less about hanging out with guys or whatever. Mine is like, if I can work as much as possible, that is how I feel accomplished. That's how I feel rejuvenated. Mm-hmm. And so, she realizes that. So she makes space to be able to let me double down on work sometimes. And so that may be what that looks like. So that just happened this past Monday. One of my mentors, a guy I consider a mentor, called me and was like, hey, I'm having a lunch in San Francisco with entrepreneurs that I pastor. I want you there. What do I got to do for you to be there? Or like, how do you want to come and want to be here? And he probably 3 weeks ago called me on it, and we had Disneyland scheduled for it. And I'm like, but this is someone I consider a mentor. He told me the individuals that were going to be there relationally, and they're all kingdom guys. And so I was like, dang, I really want to be at this. For him, it's support what he's doing, but also for those relationships, they're work related. And so I called Ashley and I'm like, I don't know what mood she's going to be in, because it's Disneyland, and I'm going to ask her to move Disneyland. And, some guys would be like, nope, family's my first ministry. And I've had to do that before in certain times. But for this, I'm like, it's a regular Disney. We got season tickets. If she's open to it, we'll move it. And Ashley was like, oh, yeah, I know how much you love Dave. We can go on Friday. We can move it 3 days before, And so I'm like, okay, cool. But if she would have hit me back like, no, I don't, you worked a lot. I think you should stick to what we have scheduled. Then I would have called Dave and said, hey, I won't be able to make it. And I'm okay with that. I wouldn't have held anything against her or anything like that. But we've opened up the communication enough that I know she cares about what I care about, and I care about what she cares about. So when she pushes back and says, no, I don't think that's it, I'm like, okay, I know she cares. I know she knows. And if I really felt it was important, then I could put my foot down, but, and she's probably not going to talk to me for 3 days or whatever that is, but I'm not going to do that. That's my last choice. So, great conversations, everybody. Continue to share, ask questions. Did you have something else?
Yeah, I have the update for the video.
Oh, we said at the end,
the ticker.
We're going to see where it was at in 1 hour.
Every 30 seconds, I have to update it. So right now, we're at 119,000 views, 10,000 likes, over 4,000 sends, and over 1,000 saves.
Dang! Hey. So what did we start at the beginning of this hour?
At 64.
64,000.
And you went
now
up-
it's at
So now
a-
it's almost
well, let me
doubled. It's almost at
refresh it.
120,000.
It's at 120. I'm telling you, I have to refresh
Dang,
it.
it's going up 10,000 like every minute.
Yes. Good for you, babe.
Everybody,
Look at
thanks.
you,
My
yes.
first viral post. God bless you
We'll
guys.
have your
What did I
trophy
say
next
on
time.
it? What was it on it?
It
again?
was about healthy dependency
Yeah.
between a married couple.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
yeah,
what
yeah.
it was.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. Well, oh yeah. Well, everybody go follow our TikTok, Instagram, everything else.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yes. God bless. Bye bye.